This is John Cressman with monkeyuncle.com, and this is episode 3 of our vertical shooter tutorial. If you've been following along, you should have your project at this point, but if not, you can download it from our website, monkeyuncle.com. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to save our project as Vertical Shooter 003. And now what we're going to do is we're going to actually add lasers, the ability to fire lasers, to the project. Now to do that, the first thing we're going to do is create an actor for the laser. We're going to call this player laser. Next, we're going to go into the player itself, and we're going to create two new attributes. They're both going to be real attributes. We're going to name the first one Fire Timer, and the second one Fire Interval. Fire Timer is going to keep track of the time between fires, and interval will be the time between the ability to fire. Otherwise they can just hold the space bar or push the fire button and they'll keep firing, which we probably don't want. We want to actually set a limit on how quickly they can fire. Alright, so for interval we're going to put 0.25. that's 1/4 of a second. Alright, and now let's go back. Well, actually, while we're here, let's go ahead and create the rule that will handle the fire. Now we have a rule that handles left movement, a rule that handles right movement. We're going to do a file save just in case. And what we're going to do is we're going to say when attribute game button 1 is true, and basically that means when they've pressed the button or the space bar. And we're going to add a second condition here by hitting this little plus sign up here. We're adding a second condition, and that is when attribute player, the attribute we just created, which is Fire Timer, is less than player time. So that means that the interval has passed and they're ready to fire again. Now when that happens, what we're going to do is we're going to create a laser beam, and to do that we're going to spawn an actor, and that actor is going to be the player laser. Now the layer of order and the direction you can leave the same, but what we're going to do is where it says position, we're going to change that to be relative to the scene. Now this is the X and this is the Y, up and down, side to side. So for Y, we want to spawn it basically player position Y, which is where the player is located, and then we want it to be above the player, so that's going to be plus, and then we're going to add the player size and height. Now you can tweak this to make it exactly where you want, but this is a good starting point. Now for the X, we're going to simply make it the player position X. That can basically fire the laser from the middle, because remember the XY coordinates are the middle of the actor, so it's going to fire it from the middle of the player actor. Now we fired, but what we need to do one more thing, and that is we need to reset the fire timer. Basically that gives a little bit of a pause between they can fire. So fire timer is going to be set to player time plus whatever fire interval we set. Alright, now we're going to go back to home, and we're going to edit this player actor, and we're going to go back here to our shooter, and we're going to graphics. We're going to come down here to laser, and since we have a green ship, we're going to go down to laser green, and we're going to choose the green 11. Laser green 11, just because I like the way that looks. Now we're going to change the size to match that, and the size is 9 wide by 54 high. Alright. And now this laser beam, let's go ahead and file and save. So I'm going to start the game. And remember, we can move back and forth with our controls. Now this is the fire button. When I click it, oh, there's a laser. Oh, there's another one. Oh, lots of lasers. But they're not doing anything. So what we have to do is we have to make the lasers do something. So we're going to go into laser actor, and we're going to add two things. We're going to add change attribute. We're actually going to add a speed. I like to add a speed attribute to anything that moves, because then we can control that later on without too much trouble. So we're going to set that speed to 600. And what we're going to do is we're going to change the player laser motion linear velocity Y, that's up and down, and we're going to be going up the screen, which means it gets, the number is going to get greater, so we're going to just change that to speed. If we were going down the screen, it would be negative speed. Okay. Now that's just going to travel up and just keep going, because even though it might be off the screen, the actor continues to exist until we tell it, well, to stop existing. And that's what we're going to do. When it gets off the screen, now remember, it's heading up the screen, so we're going to check when the attribute laser position Y is greater than the game display size height. So when it reaches the top of the screen plus the player laser size height. So we want it to be completely off the screen. This is actually a little bit of overkill. I could actually do a divide by 2, but I want it to be completely off the screen. Alright, when it gets off the screen, what we're going to do is destroy this actor. And we just do this so that you don't have a lot of extra actors taking up memory. Alright, so now file, save, and we're going to preview, and there we go. We're firing lasers. Let's go back to home. Now say you want to add a dual laser. So what you're going to do is we're going to go back here into player. Now this is our fire behavior. We're going to do the option or alt and drag and create a second behavior. Okay. But now instead of spawning in the middle, all right, we're going to have one spawn on the right and one spawn on the left. And the way we do that is we're going to, in this one at least, we're going to do minus, this will be the left, minus player size width divided by 2. Just remember, we're going from the center point. And on this one, we're going to do plus player size width divided by 2. So that's going to create 2 lasers, one on the right and one on the left. Let's save that and go ahead and preview. Start game and fire. And there we go. Dual lasers, and we can move back and forth and fire to our heart's content. And that's all we have for our third installment. Stay tuned for the fourth installment where we will be adding some enemies. And again, this is John Cressman with monkeyuncle.com.